Charlie Kirk, an author, just got assassinated. For me, like, my father was also an author in his own way, and I felt very much aligned with what his son was feeling, even though I was blessed enough that my father survived. But I knew like how it destroyed the narrative in which I was living in, and 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 how it affected me. And one of the things that I am afraid of personally as a human being is that one of the strange things about extreme forms of governments is the radical left and the radical right. One of the things I feel in shaman is that they impose an eatable complex among the citizens, which is like everything is going to be done by the leader or by the party or something. And in Germany, we have right now a system, for instance, where civic duty is not emphasized anymore. The state takes care of the elders, and everybody seems to be fine with it, where we just dismiss these our mothers and fathers to these elderly homes. We give our children to these public education facilities rather than educating themselves. We give the mentally sick to these institutions, and they're going to be. There's very not an encouragement on responsibility. And one of the things that I'm afraid of is that we can evolve through killing the artists, the authors, the dissidents, the people who have a problem with bowing down to these insane people. That when they get killed, there's not enough people anymore who make a stance. You as a free thinker yourself, and as an enemy of the extremists, so to say, what was going through your mind when this was happening? You're right now in the States still, right?
I'm currently in Europe.
You're
But
currently, of course, we're in the same time zone, but like as a member of who's lived in United States, what was going through your mind when you saw this happening that felt to like quite a significant a moment in America's history?
it's um, it's really sad when fundamentally good actors, get taken out. Like I don't agree with everything Kirk is saying. I didn't even know very much of him, right? But
Likewise, by the way.
I uh he was someone who was actually talking to people and trying to build bridges, and who would sometimes even debate people who were very different from him, but in a respectful way. Like to to dismiss someone like Kirk as a fascist, I think this is the real fascism. Like he was supporting a culture of dialogue, culture of debate. And to dismiss him as a fascist, I think is a betrayal of humanity. I don't think ignorance is a sufficient excuse. I think it's malice, just plain out malice.
I would love to talk with you about malice also. I feel there's a before I go to that topic, I'm always aware of Franz. What's his name? Franz Ferdinand, the guy who got shot and that triggered the First World War.
Yep, in Sarajevo.
Yeah, what do you feel? Do you think a cataclysmic trigger event happened that will lead to a global exchange of war? Or do you think, how can we recognize that? Because one of the things that for me, it's right now, as a European, as a German, as a Socratic, it's very hard for me to keep track of all the insanity that's happening right now. And I'm like, I'm turning on the news. I'm like, it's very strange for me to predict what's happening next. How does it feel like for you, and what would feel the criteria for this is a real kind of moment? Let's prepare, so to say, if there is actually a preparation for what would happen after such a moment. And it's like
As
to give, for instance, there was this assassination attempt of Trump, like, and it's like for me, there was like psychologically very, I paid a lot of attention to that, both on the side of what would have happened, like if the assassination attempt would have been successful, and how did this change him. It's like one of the things when I'm here in the city of Berlin, where Hitler preached, for instance, one of the things that changed Hitler a lot was surviving a near-death experience when he was at the front, like, and his friends were all in his trenches fighting, and he went on a bike and he went away pretty much to deliver a message or some shit, and he came back and all his friends were dead. And I think one of the things that did psychologically to Hitler was this feeling of being ordained or destined to, that he didn't die for a particular purpose, in regards to, okay, it seems that I am it fueled this narrative for him. And I'm wondering if this is the same thing that happened to Trump, and how we can potentially recognize a moment where that's a shifting point for society. Yeah, sorry, this was like a the boys question ever, multi-layered on 7 different fronts in a way.
y- you know, like I think it takes two to tango, right? Like I think that the problems of the US are not attributable just to Trump. I think they're attributable to a dysfunctioning collaboration across the political aisle. So, you know, for example, like Trump's legitimacy is constantly attacked by the Democrats. And as a result, like proper governance around Trump is not possible, right? Because like if someone who would be like a reasonable person would be shunned by all the Democrats for working with Trump, so then Trump basically hires all these crazies that are willing to take roles in his government, right? And then we have like anti-vaxxers and you know, all sorts of like insane ideas kind of coming to the fore. But I honestly, like, I think, I mean, Trump's trying to do his best. I don't think he is illegitimate. I think it's the Democrats that are basically trying to take this legitimacy away. They're not just taking legitimacy away from Trump, but they're taking legitimacy away from presidency and from the Constitution. So I think it's a highly problematic situation, right? Like if you have a democracy, right, you have to respect that whoever gets elected president is president. Because if you stop doing that, then you fracture the country. It's like folks are starting a war, you know, without proper foresight or preparation. And then in the end, everyone suffers, right? Like the policies that Trump is doing with a small group of people, right, like are much worse than the policies that Trump would be doing in an alternative reality where the society actually still work together. Or for example, like Russia, right? Like you've got this like tiny little clique around Putin that are making, you know, awful decisions. I mean, you know, Putin had this idea of like taking down Ukraine in 3 days in a special military operation. Like when his head of FSB told him, like, don't do this, it's a bad idea, Putin basically tore him up in public and went and did that, where his own people told him, like, don't do it. And now, whenever someone says, like, maybe we shouldn't continue this, you know, war in Ukraine, well, they die. So, you know, at the same time, like, I mean, Ukraine is not like a particularly wealthy country, but I mean, they're doing an incredible job, you know, protecting fundamentally like the values of Europe without proper support. So, I don't know, it's mind-boggling, but like, you know, there is one thing, you know, like, you know, that Putin was working in Germany for many years, and he was kind of, you know, supporting the left-wing terrorists in Germany at the time. So he knows German culture and he knows how to manipulate it. And his innovation has been to basically support both the far left and the far right at the same time, weakening the you know, the adversaries to Russian interests.
Yeah, it's I'm in Berlin right now, and it's like it's so interesting because Berlin is a culture hotspot for where you can see many ideologies played out, and it's like, how do you defeat a country? Well, if you convince them of the idea that they will never need any defenders, like the very idea of masculinity here is, it's like the guys here you meet is like they're busy like taking drugs and partying at the weekend, and it's like some of the very foundational social constructs are here, like family, like having children. Like some of the ideas of like propagating through the generation have been so much under attack that it's been now a conversational point when you go on a date where it's like, do you want to have children? Or like, is do like some of the ideas like, I like to work on entrepreneurial problems. You always have to make a case for yourself first, where you check if the other person is fine with that, or if that person has a negative bias towards people who build things, because like there's like the idea the builders are thieves of tomorrow, so to say. So it's like there's many interesting things. I'm sometimes wondering, I wonder if this is all randomly, or if there's just like some finance movement to corrupt the culture from the up way down, and now you have, how easy would it be to take the city right now that is not aligned and doesn't have a coherent culture anymore? Do you believe that there's some like from a conspiracy theory level, some movements between the countries to make each other weaker on that level?
Oh, it's not a conspiracy theory. There is evidence that this has been going on for quite a while. And I can tell you more off the record, because all of these things are fundamentally kind of suspicions, and the data is somewhat limited, and to some extent, like, revealing this data is also going to hinder the success of say radical center. Um, the the one thing that you mentioned is entrepreneurship, which I think is really interesting. But like, why is it always a company that is a result of this entrepreneurship? It's a family is an act of entrepreneurship, a result of entrepreneurship. A community is a result of entrepreneurship.